pretty unprecedented here to have a press conference like we are. But I assume these are going on all over college football and the sporting world, and I appreciate you guys coming on and giving us a chance to talk about Army football and just kind of the way things are going here in our program right now. It's certainly our thoughts are with our nation and people around the world who are facing this health crisis, and it's a little bit eerie to be out there and to go to the grocery store and to go to the markets, the gas stations as needed, and just see people who we're drawn to each other. We enjoy interaction, just avoiding each other, wearing masks. Just really odd to be a part of a world like that, and anxious for it to get back like it was, but realize what we're facing here, and just pray for everybody who is ill and who has loved ones who are, and those that are suffering from not just this. This makes us really focus on one thing, but there's a lot of people around the world, and right here in our backyard, they're still suffering from a lot of other things, and the issues that normally make life difficult for a lot of people. We're just focusing on this one thing. So really a strange time in our existence here, but we remain motivated and excited about the hope of the future, and Army football being a part of that.
How have you been relying on staff, whether it be via these kind of meetings or whole, I guess, balancing act been the past few weeks?
Well, nothing's normal right now, and people call it a new normal. This will never be the normal. We can't coach football without being around people and interacting with people and being able to teach and do all that. So hopefully that normal's coming back at some point. But right now, we're making the best of the situation we're in. We're continuing to meet as a staff to game plan, to scheme, to develop ourselves as teachers and as mentor leaders, to just support our players. The most important thing we can do right now is be a support to them, to love them, to make sure that they're healthy, that mentally, emotionally, physically, that they're in a good place, and that their families are. Support them academically. They're having to experience education at West Point remotely, and you think it's challenging to do that here in a classroom where you've got access to professors and tutorial help and I guess the group study times that they have. That's really hard to do when we've got 4,400 cadets in 4,400 different places. So that's a real challenge. We got to support them academically, but they love football, and we're still spending some time with them talking about some football. I think they look forward to that. We're meeting regularly as a staff, and that maintains that sense of team and camaraderie amongst our coaches and our staff, which is important. So as much as possible, doing the normal things, just not doing them in a very normal way.
And Jeff, just as a follow-up, we'd be obviously in the midst of spring practice right now as it was originally scheduled. We were looking forward to a lot of position battles as you were to figure things out during the spring. Can you make any decisions over looking at film over the past year in practices? And you mentioned everyone's going through this. Or is everything in certain ways at a standstill until you get back out on the field and you're coaching these guys?
We were hopeful that we would get a chance to coach these guys on the field and do evaluations of so many of our young players. we've got a number of guys that spent the entire season on the scout team. And we've got some guys who spent a couple years on the scout team and have improved and are going to be battling for positions on the field, positions on our team, and we rely on spring practice to make a lot of those decisions. It's very difficult for us to do that without the spring practice evaluations. So for right now, we want to get all of our veteran players, everybody that's in our program, as up to speed as possible from a mental standpoint, so that when we do again return to the practice field, that they have as good an understanding as possible of their jobs, their assignments, the fundamentals that go along with their positions, and we can go as quickly as possible to implement our schemes and let those guys be able to play so that we can evaluate and figure out who's going to be the players at each position.
This is obviously an interesting time for everyone, but I think you have a unique position. For me, I think one of the most significant challenges around the nation is impact on families. But you have basically 3 families that you're managing. Obviously, your immediate family. Then you have the football family, meaning the staff, the coaches, the players. And then you have what I call the extended family, meaning the incoming freshmen, whether it be coming from prep school or direct. Is this the biggest challenge that you've had to encounter as a head coach or as a coach in general? And how have you kind of, connected all of those entities, if you will?
It's a challenge, certainly at home for everybody. It's just a different daily routine for everybody to work from home, to have children who are doing schoolwork. And fortunately, my wife is very well prepared and trained to help my girls with their schoolwork. And I feel for the families and the parents who aren't able to do that, I don't have that kind of experience. I couldn't help my own kids with their schoolwork and all the things that go along with that if I had to. Number one, even if I didn't have a job, I have a job that I do every day. If I were separated from that job and they said, "Hey, we're not going to work and you don't have to come in, you don't have to call in, just take care of your family," I would need support from their teachers to say, "Okay, how am I to teach this and how am I to correct this?" And my wife can do that. She's incredible. But there's people that I'm sure are struggling with that all over the country and around the world. And I feel for them. That's really a hard job and a different dynamic, that you're a parent or you're a sibling and then you're a teacher. And so it's different at home. Everybody finding their own workspace and for me to do the things that I do, for my kids, each of them to have their workspace, for my wife to have her space. It's different. And so fortunately, I got a great partner in my wife, and she does a terrific job managing that. And I do my best, not always perfect at that, but just try to do my best to be a part of the team at home. With our staff and our players, this Army Football Brotherhood, we've really just tried to maintain as much of what we would be doing every day with everybody who's a part of the program. Obviously, our players are spending most of the day with their schoolwork, so they attend classes online in a platform much like we have here. They have study time and additional instruction with their professors as needed. We have some meetings with our players, not a whole lot. I don't want to inundate them, and there's a lot of responsibilities they have. Rich and I had a conversation about this morning, and when they're at home, just as those of us that normally go to an office and work away from home, when we're at home, home get put on everybody that's in the house. So got to take the garbage out, or you got to clean the bathrooms, or let the dog out, or prepare a lunch for everybody, or whatever it may be. And there are a lot of households who have people in those homes that need care. They need care from family members, whether it's a younger sibling, someone who's sick or ill, someone who's older that may need support. So all of those things are thrown into the mix for our players and our coaches as well. So having just the understanding that there's a lot more on their plate right now than there would typically be at West Point. Even with football, we would take a lot of their time in football, but a lot of their time right now is being taken with other things. So we're not crushing them with meetings a couple of times a week, just for an opportunity for them to get together, really interact, check on their emotional, mental, and physical well-being, and that of their families, and then talk some X's and O's, which they really enjoy and look forward to. That's kind of how we're managing that team. And then the prospects, the guys that are coming in from the prep school, our many commits from around the country. We're just trying to do a great job of keeping in touch with those guys and giving them hope for the future and what's to come. There's going to be college football at some point. We don't know when that's going to be, but I know there's going to be college football at some point, and they're going to be a part of Army football. And so we continue to stay in touch with them and I guess recruit them, if you will, to being excited about being a part of the Brotherhood. Our prep school staff does a tremendous job of really managing those guys, and they've done a terrific job during this time with that group of guys. And then there's obviously the prospects that are currently juniors in high school that have some big decisions coming up. They would be normally visiting campuses and coming to practices and kind of planning trips with their parents to see college programs. And that's all on hold right now. So that's another group of guys that our staff and our coaches are working tremendously hard on to bring into West Point and give them all the information we can, get out in front of that, so that when the time comes and they can visit, or the time comes for them to make those decisions, that we've shared as much information as possible.
Great. And my follow-up question to that is, you talked a little bit about the academics, you talked a little bit about the emotional component. What about the strength and conditioning? How is that being handled? Is that being handled virtually, if you will, offline, online, if you will? And can you talk a little bit about how that's unfolding right now?
So the rules of engagement have changed a little bit here in the last week. For the first couple of weeks, we were able to, coach our guys. Our strength staff was able to actually be online and watch the guys lift, or to make corrections as they'd watch video, live video or recorded video of our players. And the NCAA is really, like all of us, trying to navigate their way through how do we control student athlete safety, their health, compliance. And so last week they kind of set down a rule that says, look, you can't require workouts. They can't be monitored because there's no trainer, someone who can treat them if they're injured or something happens on site. So they can lift on their own. We can't require it. We can't view it. That makes it really difficult. I understand where that's coming from and why they do that, but obviously being in these very strange times, athletes, not just in football, they want to train and they want to improve. They want to be the best that they can be, and they know that they need to train in order to do that, and they want the help and support of coaches. So hopefully here as these days and weeks roll along, however long this takes, we're able to figure out collectively as a collective body, the NCAA and all the schools that fall under that umbrella, a way to be able to train our student athletes. And I think being able to do that in a setting or in a way that is appropriate and makes sense will only help their health and their mental health, their emotional health, their physical health. And when we do return to sports, that they are conditioned to be able to handle the demands of being a college athlete. So it's interesting. I hope that those rules are going to change, but as for right now, as of the middle of last week, we can give our guys guidance on here's a workout that you could do, but we can't require it or view it. So that's a little bit different and interesting. But our strength coaches just do a tremendous job, Coach Hughes and the staff here. And I know that our players are still calling on them and saying, what about this? And I want to do this. And certainly that's permissible by rule.
What are just some of the things you've told your players to kind of just keep them focused as the season's kind of delayed here or could possibly be delayed?
Really not different than I tell them all the time. We control two things, attitude and effort. We really don't have much control over anything else as human beings. Our ability to control our own attitude about the situation we're in, the things that we're facing, the effort, how hard we work at it, that's all on us individually. So trying to keep those guys motivated to have a positive attitude and a tremendous work ethic is all we're concentrating on. And that starts with their academics. Every day they wake up and they get prepared and have to attend online classes. And so having a great attitude and working really hard is going to be important. A lot of the guys are doing their workouts in the mornings. They wake up and get a workout in the morning. Others wait until the afternoon or do it in the evening. Some have weights available to them at their house or in their garage, or have other resistance bands or even some old buy off the TV 1-800 number equipment that nobody has ever used in their house, and they're dusting it off and finding a way to use it. Really amazing the things that our guys are coming up with to be able to train but that's the attitude and effort we talk about. You can't control the equipment you have, but you can control the effort you put into using what you have. But our strength coaches have helped our guys who have no weights. It's all body weight and manual resistance stuff, push-ups, sit-ups, planks, pull-ups, using just things that they might have around the house, concrete blocks or tires or whatever it may be, and have helped our guys develop ways to put together a program so that they can improve. So we got a remarkable group of guys on our team, and as well as the men and women that make up the United States Corps of Cadets here at West Point. Just an incredible group of young people. And I'm certain that most of our cadets that are elsewhere in the world are still running and training and because they feel a sense of responsibility and obligation to be at their very best, so that when they are called to serve, they're prepared to do that. So I'm proud of our guys, and I think they're working really hard at it.
And now sort of a follow-up to that, I mean, if the CDC guidelines are pushed along further, how would you personally, help prepare this team for the upcoming season?
If they're pushed further?
Yes.
I'm not following you.
Like the social distancing guidelines, things of that nature, if they're still in place as the season approaches? I mean, what are you really want to do to kind of just help this team prepare if those guidelines are still in place?
If those guidelines are still in place, we're not going to be playing any football, and that's I think pretty apparent. So our guys realize that, and we can't control that. We have no control of that. What we control is our attitude and our effort. So maintaining a positive attitude and not allowing what the maybes or the what ifs or the uncertainty to control us, which we can allow it to control us, but that's on us. Having a great attitude, continue to put forth effort is important. And I told our team, and I've talked to our staff about this, that, excuse me, this is, I think this is great training for Army officers, for our players, for all of our students. As Army officers, they will be asked to train and prepare themselves and their units, those that they lead, for a lot of what ifs. And when our Army officers, when they train themselves, when they train their units and their soldiers, they don't often know what the kickoff time is, what the date of that kickoff is going to be, who the opponent will be. And we have that in sports. We got a schedule. We kick off at 12 noon, and we're playing such and such a team at this stadium. Well, we can prepare for that. And it gives us an opportunity to look forward to those competitions. But when our guys join the Army, they're not going to know. And it may just be somebody says, we're going right now, and they need to have themselves and their unit prepared to go and to win. So this is great preparation for our players and for all of our students as Army officers. They've got to maintain a positive attitude and an incredible work ethic to have themselves, the people that they are responsible to, and those that they will lead, prepared to go fight when the United States of America says, let's go fight. And so I think for our guys, this is just another way for them to train for their purpose of being here at West Point. That's to serve our nation as officers.
Just down by us, we've had phenomenal assistance by the Army National Guard, and what the Corps of Engineers has done in Manhattan's been phenomenal, and all the medical people. How does it feel knowing that your football team represents all those heroic soldiers out there?
It's an incredible privilege and honor for all of us to wear those colors, and for everybody right now that's out there on the front lines. That's our first responders, our medical professionals, people working in the essential stores and businesses that have to remain open for us to be able to continue to exist as a society. We've got to eat, and we've got to have people getting from one place to another in order to help people who are sick. I mean, there's still the daily life of hundreds of millions of people and billions of people around the world that need people to do their jobs and to serve, and then obviously our United States Army and all of our armed forces and the job that they do daily, right now and every day, that often goes unnoticed and unthanked. And if that's the correct way to say that, these first responders and our armed forces and our National Guard, those aren't jobs that a lot of people covet and are envious of those people because they're hard jobs. And those people are asked to do a lot for very little personal praise or accolades thrown their way. But we need them, and they do a job and pay a price that we can, that we'll be indebted to forever, one we can't pay back. And so just very grateful for all of them, and incredibly proud to represent our men and women who serve in the United States Army all over the world.
Absolutely. Just a thought on, I know it's so uncertain about when the season, when training camp might be able to start. Is there an amount of time that you need? Is there a certain number of weeks that you need to prepare a team to play a game?
There's time needed to prepare a team physically. And I think with what we're going through right now as a society and in sports in general, and regardless of the level, it's going to take some time for our athletes, not just college athletes, athletes in general that are playing sports, organized sports, to get in the kind of condition that they need to be in physically in order to compete and to not injure themselves. So I don't know what that exact time is. It probably has more to do with how long the layoff is and how much we're able to do what we're permitted to do, as Charles had asked about the training of our team. If we're able to come to some kind of an understanding of here's what we can do with our athletes to help train them and keep them conditioned, then I think the return could be quicker. And then there's also the mental piece. Football is a complex game, and there are 22 people out there on the field playing the game every play, and there are almost 22 different unique jobs. Some are similar, playing corner and playing safety are similar, but they're not exactly the same. Playing offensive guard and offensive tackle are very similar. They're not exactly the same. And playing linebacker and playing quarterback are completely different. And playing kicker and outside linebacker, completely different. So we've got guys with a lot of different job descriptions, and so the preparation for those guys to be ready takes some time. All the schemes that go into it, all the fundamentals that go along with each position, and it's going to take some time just to have them prepared. We've obviously got some veteran players who will be far ahead of the younger guys, and certainly the rookies, which would allow them to be able to play and compete a lot sooner. But I think we're all going to need some time, and what that's going to be, I don't know. We've lost spring practice. There are some teams that have already completed spring practice, so there will be some inequities when we return, regardless, and how those are managed, I don't know. I don't know that they can be managed. But we've lost 15 days of spring practice. We lose 15 days of meetings and the meeting time in between. So it's a 20-hour work week for 4 or 5 weeks of spring ball for a lot of people. That's a lot of missed time. So it's what we've got to do right now. There's nothing more important than defeating this virus and getting everybody healthy, getting our country healthy, and our world at a place where we can operate normally and not be concerned with being sick and all that comes with it. So our normal preseason camp is typically somewhere between 4 and 5 weeks leading up to the first game. Whether we'll get that much time or not, I don't know. It's nice to have that time, but if everybody has the same amount of time, I guess that there's some equity in that, with the exception of those that have had an opportunity to practice in the spring.
What advice would you give the high school players right now?
To maintain a great attitude and to work as hard as you can. That's all you can control. That's the advice I'd give them. I think a lot of them have, they're anxious about their senior seasons. And I think I would be too if I were in their shoes. There's a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen with their seasons, but their obligation is to their team to have themselves prepared and ready to play with their team as seniors, to lead those teams. And I would advise them to do the very best they can to prepare and continue to lead their teams. They've got the ability to connect with each other in a way that has never been possible in the free world before. When I was growing up, you had a home phone and it was a rotary dial, and if you had a real fancy phone, you had a push button. We never had one of those until, golly sakes, I don't know, maybe I was in college. But but I think they have an opportunity to lead their teams and to connect with their teammates and ready themselves. In terms of the recruiting, that's something that would be going on anyway with us, and we're able to connect with them in different ways, whether it be the phone or text message or whatever that may be. And I'm sure a lot of them are very anxious about recruiting and how this is going to affect their future as college football players. They're like everybody else in the country. They're all experiencing the same thing. So they can't control that, but they can control their attitude and effort about their season next year. The interesting thing this does for would-be college athletes is the ones I really feel for are those that maybe were injured as juniors in high school, and the anxiousness that they may feel about their senior season, whether they're going to play it or not, and how that's going to affect their future. And so, I know there's a lot of uncertainty out there, but it's all going to work itself out, and they're all in the same boat, as you will, and so just get yourself ready to play your senior season and do the best you can there, and I'm certain that it'll all work out for the best.
If I could just have one more. I know Elijah Riley graduated, but what made him the right fit as a captain?
Well, our players decide that, and I think one, he's a very emotional player, a good player, very productive guy for us over the last 4 years, and I think our guys saw the growth in him as a leader, and going from a young player who really was focused on trying to improve as an individual and be the best he could to help our team, to a guy that really focused on the development of the team and his teammates and his place and everybody's in Army football. And I think our guys saw that he was a guy that was willing to step up and lead and be vocal, and so that's why they voted him captain.
You talked a little bit about just conditioning and what that process has been with guidance from the NCAA. Can you talk a little bit about if that's kind of the same process within regards to nutrition? Obviously, with the cadets being home, there's different environments. Can you talk a little bit about how the staff has supported all these young men, kind of in the nutrition and health aspect?
That's a concern for our players, and I think that's something that we're experiencing around the country in college athletics is that our athletes rely on the nutrition that we provide. Here, it's very unique in that they eat a lot of their meals in the mess hall and they eat those together. But we were able to supplement those meals as an athletic department, and we do that through our training staff and our strength staff. We have a nutritionist who oversees all of that, and it really gives us an ability to control what they're putting into their body. We don't have any of that control right now. That's one of the things that when we check on our guys in terms of their health and welfare is, do they have enough to eat? Are they getting quality food? And by NCAA rule, what we can do to supplement that and provide additional food for them, which was a really wise, I think, decision and put into it's now a rule in terms of the NCAA. We can provide our student athletes with food anytime. There's no limitation to what we can feed them. Obviously, they can only eat so much in a day, but there was once a limitation on what we could feed them, where we could feed them those meals, and the health of these young men and women is most important. There's nothing more important than the health and welfare of our students and our student athletes. So being able to supplement and provide them quality food, I think everybody, including the NCAA, saw the value in that. So what we're permitted to do NCAA-wise, we continue to do. And our strength staff and training staff, they know, and I've identified those guys that may have some difficulty getting their hands on as much food or the quality food that they need. So we're really focusing our efforts on trying to help those guys.
Awesome. And then can you talk a little bit about, you've had meetings with the team, meetings with your staff, but how are you ensuring that just within the brotherhood, the guys are talking to each other, keeping each other motivated? Kind of talk a little bit about that.
So each time that we meet, we have, there's a lead up time. If the meeting starts at 11:30 like this one did this morning, there'll be some lead up time. The guys will start to jump in early and they'll talk to each other, and they can stay on afterwards and talk to each other. But like they typically do, they talk a lot by text, and social media and all of those platforms. I mean, I got a teenage daughter. She'll be sitting in the same room with somebody and send them a text message rather than just saying it out loud. It's amazing how they communicate. But our guys are talking to each other on the phone, and this is something that excuse me, we did at each of the breaks, whether it was over the holidays in December, January, spring break. We've got some key leaders on our team, and they do a good job of calling and encouraging, motivating the other guys. And I've really been encouraged. Some of our team leaders just this week, we've got a group text with those guys, and they were discussing how they might reach out to other guys on the team outside of their own position group and start to develop those relationships and motivate those guys. So I think our players are really taking that responsibility on and being serious about it, without always having to be encouraged to do so by our staff. Certainly our coaches are talking to our players continuously and checking on them academically, and we get a chance to see them through the platforms like this one that gives us a chance to meet and see each other face to face. But our players are doing a good job with that. So I'm proud of them for the effort they're putting into those relationships as well.
how has this impacted your recruiting?
We don't have the opportunity to bring bring players or prospects onto campus like we typically would. That's probably the biggest effect right now, the immediate effect. So during spring practice, we would have had several opportunities to get guys here. The spring game was always very well attended, and we'd get a lot of prospects here for that. An opportunity to show them our facilities and see this beautiful campus and take them in the classrooms and the mess hall and trophy point. And this is an incredible place, as you know, and to see it and to be able to walk around and experience West Point is pretty impactful. So that part we've lost, but until April 15th, besides those that would be coming on campus, and obviously every prospect can't make it to campus. We've got a lot of guys that we've recruited. We got guys on our team that we're only able to come one time, and a lot of those were an official visit where we provided the transportation and got them here. So all of the typical things that we'd be doing, phone calls and letters and text messages, we continue to do that in recruiting. The NCAA had put a dead period in place until April 15th. I think with the hope that this whole thing might be behind us and there may be some opportunity to get back out and spring recruit. That has been extended to the end of May. So there will be no spring recruiting. So where we would typically be able to get out and watch spring practices of high school prospects, to be able to see spring games, to watch track meets, workouts, all of those are lost. So it is different, but that's different for everybody. It's not unique to just us. So we're trying to fill that space with the things that we can do. And whatever we are permitted to do from an NCAA standpoint, we're trying to continue to do those things.
Excuse me. You had a handful of guys who were hoping maybe to give the pros a shot. How has this impacted them?
I'm really proud of those guys that have played up to a level that they're being considered. And that the Department of Defense and our joint chiefs of staffs from each of the branches of service and what they've done to create these opportunities, not just for football student athletes, but for athletes across the board. I think it's fantastic that they've got these measures in place and they're figuring out how we're going to make that work. And I want every player I coach to be able to play his very best, to play at a really high level. And if that means being able to play beyond college, I think it's fantastic. We have no idea, obviously, how this is going to affect professional sports, how this is going to affect people that are leaving college with the hopes and dreams of being able to play professional sports. There's so many unknowns to even say, what I think is going to happen. I don't know, but we got some guys that have some aspirations and some hopes. And I tell you, I hope as much for them as they do for themselves. But the great thing is that they're earning a West Point degree. Regardless of what happens for them in sports, they've got an unbelievable career ahead of them and opportunities that they probably would never have if they went to school anywhere else. So they're very fortunate to be in a position to be able to serve as an Army officer, gain that experience, develop the leadership skills, and put those leadership skills into practice and whether that's a long lifetime career in the Army, or it's a career in the Army and followed by a career doing something else, they're gonna be tremendously successful. And they have all of that, along with the possibility of being able to play sports at a really high level, at a professional level. I'm excited for all those guys, and time will tell. We'll see what happens.
One last question. Have you spoken to Troy or Ken through all this?
I have not. I'm not going to trade any ideas with them, or let them know what we're doing. And they're not going to let me know. It'd be foolish on any one of our parts. So we circle the wagons when it comes to that. And Ken's a great friend of mine. We've had this conversation before, and it's really hard to have a great friend be your biggest rival. But it hasn't changed our friendship. We remain friends and close, and I love Ken like a brother. But as long as we're squaring off every December, we're not going to be trading many secrets. But I'm just hopeful for them, their families, their coaching staffs, their players, and everybody, that they're healthy and safe, and trust that they are.
I don't know if you talked about this before, but how about injured players who are trying to rehab? How has this situation affected them?
Our head athletic trainer, our football athletic trainer, Bob Daplin, Tim Kelly, who oversees our training staff, they have arranged for those guys that were post-op or have had injuries that needed rehabilitation to be able to get that care at facilities in their hometowns. Most of the guys are able to still get some kind of care where they are, and which is very fortunate. And it's one of those things that we've all got this virus on our minds, and it's at the forefront of everything we think about in terms of our daily life and coming and going and social distancing. But there are still millions of people that need health care every day, need doctors and specialists to help them. So we know that if those guys who have had surgeries don't get some kind of rehabilitation, that they won't fully recover and may in fact be in very poor condition physically, not only in the short term but in the long term, if they don't get that help. So fortunately, most of our guys are able to get the treatment that they need, and they're doing a lot of therapy on their own at home with the guidance of our trainers, who can do that again on a platform like this, or just a FaceTime call, and can help those guys through a workout.
How is Jabari Law coming along as far as rehabbing?
He's doing good. He is able to get treatment where he's at, which is positive. He's seeing improvements, and so I think that's moving along as good as it could be in this situation. Certainly, we'd like to be able to get our hands on him here, but it's just where we're at. So I think that's going well, and we're encouraged by the progress he's making.